What's up, spooky babes? I'm Taylor and welcome to Let's Go Frightseeing. In this video, I am going to give you a little roundup of some of the horror books that I have been reading lately and loving. I would love to know your must-read horror book for summertime. Those summerween, spooky summer slasher vibes, I want to hear it. Tell me everything. Tananarive Due got me again with this one. She makes me cry. She crafts a beautiful horror story that also tugs on your heartstrings every time. Imagine my shock to find out that this was her debut novel. Hello, knocked it out of the park. And also, it came out in 1995, which is crazy because it's still a very relevant story to the world events of today. The Between is a beautifully told story that follows Hilton as he fights to protect his family from horrors both seen and unseen. When he was a kid, his grandmother sacrificed herself to save him from drowning, and now 30 years later, the past is bubbling up and his reality is beginning to blur. His wife, who is the only elected black judge in 1995 Florida, starts getting these awful, racist hate mail letters from a man that she prosecuted for a crime, and their family is now in danger. While trying to deal with the situation, Hilton begins having nightmares and has to question what's real and what's in his head as things go off the rails. This book kept me guessing the entire way through and has stuck with me for weeks after reading it. And now I will just continue working my way through Tananarive Due's entire catalog. Do you have a favorite Tananarive Due book? I don't know how you could choose a favorite because all the ones that I've read are so good. I can't wait to read more. Something I'm falling in love with is that the bleak atmosphere of a gothic horror novel often feels like its own character, and this is true of Blood on Her Tongue by Johanna van Veen. This book is set in the Netherlands in 1887, and it follows Lucy as she navigates a complicated situation with her twin sister Sarah. Sarah has always been somewhat of a free spirit, making the men around her quake with confusion because of her interest in academics. Enough for them to want to lock her away at the time. But these little quirks morph into a very terrifying spiral after she becomes obsessed with a centuries-old corpse that they found in the bog on her husband's property. The obsession grows until it's clear that Sarah has been taken over by something ancient and dangerous. Lucy then has to deal with all kinds of horrors as she does her best to keep Sarah from being institutionalized. This story had me gripped the entire time, not just the fantasy horror, but with the real-life horrors of the way people used to, and let's be honest, still do, treat women, people who are mentally ill, etc. This has been one of my favorite reads this year, and if you're a fan of gothic horror, you might also love this one. If you, like me, have found yourself on Appalachian TikTok, you already know the rules. If you saw something moving in the forest, no you didn't. Jackal by Erin Adams is a supernatural horror set in the Appalachian Mountains, so you know it's gonna be spooky. Our main character Liz is dreading going back home for her best friend's wedding. As a black woman living in a predominantly white area, she grew up dealing with the microaggressions and sometimes full-on straight-up racism from her peers. But during this wedding weekend, she is forced to confront more than she could have ever prepared for. Somewhere between the ceremony and the cake cutting, the bride's daughter Caroline goes missing. Liz last saw her playing on the edge of the forest, a place she avoids because of a horrifying experience she had as a teenager in those very woods. Being the last person seen with Caroline, Liz quickly has the eyes of the police on her and starts doing some digging of her own. As she starts asking questions, she soon realizes there is a pattern happening in this town. Young black girls have been going missing, one every year for decades. Some of them are found dead, their hearts missing, and some of them are never found at all. She is convinced that this is not a coincidence. We all agree. And she digs even deeper and is reminded of a local legend that was told about a shadow lurking in the forest, and people would warn their children, if you hear it call your name, no you didn't. This story had me hooked right away. Liz is such an interesting, multi-dimensional character. There are twists and turns that guide you through the very creepy and unsettling mystery happening in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. I am a big fan of this one and looking forward to reading many, many more from Erin Adams. This book had me hooked from the very beginning with its American Horror Story murder house vibes. The September House by Clarissa Orlando has been on my TBR list for a while, and I'm so glad I finally read it. This book is about Margaret and her husband Hal, who moved into their dream house. It's a beautiful Victorian with a gorgeous porch in a quiet area, and it seems like the perfect place for Margaret and Hal to move into now that their daughter is grown and off living her own life. The two of them can relax and enjoy their time together. It's all wonderful. As long as you ignore the bleeding walls, ghastly looking spirits, and the terrifying entity in the basement. The house and its residents, both living and dead, are not what they seem. Every September, the house comes to life with prankster spirits that ramp up as the month goes on. One fateful year, things are really out of control when Hal goes missing and Margaret has to deal with the house on her own. When her daughter Catherine realizes Hal is missing, she insists on coming to help figure out what's going on, and Margaret has to do her best to keep Catherine away from all of the weird shit happening. This is not an easy task. This book perfectly mixes dark comedy, horror, suspense, and a little bit of mystery. As always, please check the trigger warnings before you dive into this one because there are some things that are pretty rough. Tananarive Due is an outstanding horror author, and I don't understand how this book only has 9,000 ratings on Goodreads. Hello? The Good House is a beautifully written, slow burn horror with incredible world building. A curse flows through generations at the Good House, and when Angela returns home one summer with hopes of putting her family back together, everything falls apart. Set in the very spooky woods of Sacagawea, Washington, this book takes you on a ride through a haunted house, voodoo curses, and fascinating characters with incredible stories. With multiple points of view, we go back to the 1920s, where Angela's grandma Marie performs a ritual that sets a curse in motion. We follow Angela's son Corey as he begins to dabble in his own magic rituals, and all throughout we get to know and love Angela as she digs into the history of her family's house and the terror within its walls. I loved this book. Tananarive Due is very quickly becoming one of my favorite authors. I also highly recommend listening to the audiobook for this one. The narration done by Robin Miles is so good and really takes the story to another level. T. Kingfisher never disappoints, and I'm adding another one of her horror novels to my favorites list. A House with Good Bones is a Southern Gothic haunted house tale with so much more than just a spooky old house. Sam is our very lovable main character, back in her childhood home for a few months while her job is on hold. She is an archaeoentomologist, which means she studies bugs in archaeological digs, and this adds such a cool and interesting layer to the story while learning way more about bugs than I ever thought I would know. Anyways, while she's staying with her mom, she realizes things are kind of off. Her mom seems jumpy and is doing things she's never done before, such as making Sam pray before they eat and scolding her for swearing. Two things she's never seen her mother do. Sam starts noticing that not only is her mom acting weird, the whole house starts to feel strange. The house where Sam grew up has been in their family for many years. It was her grandmother's, who was a pretty awful person, and it seems like maybe Nasty Granny is here from beyond the grave to bully everyone, much like she did in her real life. But there's more to it as Sam dives into their family history and starts asking questions. As always with T. Kingfisher, you get a lovely, relatable main character, some bizarro creatures, and a very creative story. I absolutely loved this book. Highly recommend. Say it with me. Good for her! The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monika Kim is a book that will not leave my mind, and I am completely okay with that. We follow Jiwon, a Korean-American college student whose family life has imploded, leaving her frustrated and confused. When her mom starts dating a man named George, who is a racist, misogynist loser, Jiwon spirals down a wonderfully terrifying rabbit hole, and we get to go on the trip with her. We see her do whatever it takes to release the rage that she's feeling and get George away from her family. This book has some truly stomach-turning moments and a very satisfying ending. While we probably shouldn't, it's very easy to cheer on our main character as we follow her through this horrifying rabbit hole of a journey. I loved it. Definitely would recommend.